So, everybody, I'm going to be tying an articulated streamer fly, and I'm going to teach you how to make the spines. The spines are very easy to make, and what you're going to need for that is a looping pliers, which is these rounded pliers here with this little trough there that makes the little loops. And you're going to need some 20 gauge wire, or that's for heavier flies, or if you're making a lighter fly, you can use floral wire. The way you make the spines is the same for both. So basically what you're going to do, first we'll make the spines and then we'll put together the fly. So cut a piece of your floral wire like that. And then we're going to take your looping pliers and you're going to place it on your wire the length you want it, and then you're going to use around the tip, you're going to bend it like this, then you're going to take your two fingers, pinch those wires together, and then twist your wrists back and forth, and basically it's going to make a little loop. And what we're going to do is we're going to trim that off, and this is going to attach onto your hook, and then you can attach all your other spines onto it. So that is an end spine which attaches to either end of your hooks. So you'll need two of those, one to attach to your rear hook or your stinger hook, and one to attach to your front hook. So that's the second one. Okay. And then you have to decide how many spines you want your fly to be, and you can adjust them accordingly to the length. So if you want like a small tail, bigger until you reach the top, or you can have them all very similar in size. That's a personal preference thing. I'm going to, at this point, make them kind of all the same size. So basically, what you want to do is you want to decide how big you want your spine to be, and then you're going to repeat that same step. Now, in this case, I ran out of wire, so I didn't measure that enough. So it's always good to have a little extra wire, and then you can always use it to make the end piece. So let's try that again. So we're going to place our wire at the end of our looping pliers, fold it over, give it a twist. You have your first loop. Now, on the other end, to make the spine, what you want to do is do the opposite of that loop. So this loop goes this way. So you're going to put your pliers so that your loop will go in the opposite direction. And you want to go to the end of where that wire was. And then you have basically this with the two loops. And what you can do is just trim off your piece there. And this will allow you to put it in and close it up. Okay, so I'm going to make two of those because I don't want our fly to be super long. So again, measure it up, make your first loop, turn it on to the other side, go to the end. Pardon if there's any noises. I do live in an apartment, so I've got, being that it's summer, I've got my door open and there could be some random noises. Okay, so we have our two spines and our tail made. So what we want to do is we want to pick a hook. In this case, I'm going to do a number 8 straight hook. I'm going to put it in my vise. And for this pattern, I like to straighten out that bend of the hook. So I'll gently take my pliers. Now, depending on the quality of the hook you buy, sometimes if you straighten that out, it will snap the metal because it can be very rigid, and you don't really want that to happen. But in this case, I bought a fairly decent hook, and it allows me to bend them. So we want to attach our thread onto our hook. And what we want to do is put our end piece on and tie it on. Now, you could just put your end piece through the eye of the hook like this, but it's only going to allow your tail really the movement to go side to side. These loops are wider, which will allow the wire to have more freedom of movement to allow more wiggling. And for me, more wiggling is good. So what we're going to do, we're going to take our line, our thread, and I'm using a clear nylon thread. They're about, depends when you buy them. If you get them on sale, they're a little cheaper. They're generally about $6.99 for a spool, so it's very expensive thread. But I really enjoy it, tying with it. It's fairly strong, fairly resistant. Go and tie it in all the way to the bend. And the other thing is it hides really well and blends really well. So this thread, because it's clear, takes on whatever colors of materials you're tying in, which is really, really convenient. It doesn't show that much. So what we want to do with our little end piece is we want to hold it onto our hook. We want to put it a couple millimeters out past the original eye that's on the hook. And then you want to tie it down in front and behind. And you can adjust it so that it's nice and straight, because you want it to be as straight as the other eye was of the hook. And just, if it gets a little sideways, you can just adjust it again. And then you want to tie it on. When you come to the edge, now here's the tricky part. This edge of the wire where you trimmed it will be a bit sharp. So if you nick it on the nylon thread, there is a very good chance it'll break your thread. So when you come to that part of the fly, you want to be very gentle and tie it on. Now, to make it secure, you're going to put your bobbin up, grab some crazy glue, of course. And if your crazy glue is got a little cap on there, which it often does, you can just take that off gently with your cutting pliers, and then you can apply your crazy glue. And this is going to allow your line to grip tight and stop from twisting. When you're done using your crazy glue, it's always good to wipe off the tip. This will keep it cleaner for longer and extend the life of your crazy glue, and you don't have to fuss with it as much. Okay, so that's our first part. So now we're going to make a tail on our articulated streamer or our game changer streamer, and I'm going to use this red feather boa hackle. They come in all kinds of different colors, and I use a lot of this. So you just want to take it and you want to apply it to the end, and you want to leave it sticking out a little past the end of the hook. And that's going to give it that nice wiggly action. And there's not enough, so I'm going to go back to the feather and take a bit more and tie it in. Now you can cut off these, you can cut off the little tips if you want. I like to keep them in, especially if I'm going to be doing a dubbin or something, because it really allows the fly to bulk up. So I find that it's really nice to leave it in. I'm not quite happy with that tail. I find that it's not feathery enough, so I'm going to grab another feather and I'm going to apply. I'm going to pull out all the loose feathers and I'm going to apply a little more. I don't know. I'm one of these guys. I like things to be a little thicker, because as you catch fish, if a fly like this could be catching you, 200-300 fish in an afternoon, and once they start really eating on your fly, they can really tear your fly up. And I don't really, as they chew away at the end of this feather, it'll start getting less and less and less. So, I mean, they don't last forever, no matter how good you tie them in. So the next thing I like to use is a little bit of crystal flash, and because our tail is red, I'm going to use a red crystal flash. I'm going to blend it together. So you take it, you bend it in half, cut it in the center, fold it in half again, line up all the tips, cut it again. And then I like to measure it. Make sure you put your thread closer to the end by your feathers. I put it down to line up to the end, and then I'll tie it in. So it's up to you how much you like to use. If you like it a little sparse, you can leave it sparse. I'm going to double it up. So I'm going to take the remainder, I'm going to fold it over, and then I'm going to tie it in. And then I'm going to trim it even. And I find it just makes a really nice sparkle. And then if you've got a little left over, I will just tie that in as well. You don't have to. You can save it on for another fly, or throw it out. I never throw anything out. I'm a very conservative fly tyer. I like to conserve my materials to the best of my abilities. So now you have the tail of your fly, of your streamer. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to decide a color scheme that we want for the body. Now, I'm really sort of partial to this greenish blend that I've made. To get this color, I basically take all my scrap dubbins after I comb out my dubbin brush, after I clean it up, any spare dubbins, and I put them all in the blender, and it tends to come out this greenish color. And that really works for me. And these little fly, I don't know if the fish think it's a little nymph or some sort of a minnow. I'm not sure what they think, but so I'm going to twist the dubbin onto my line. And I'm going to start to apply it. Like so. You want it to start off thin and taper it up as you go. You want to build it up a bit so that makes a nice tapered shape. Like so. Keep going up. And for this this color and this streamer, we're going to go all the way to the top. And wherever it needs to be bulked up, just bulk it up. And it's a really simple pattern. It's going to be one color all the way through until we reach the head. So you don't have to worry about blending any other colors. So this one is a really simple fly to do. It's not very complicated. So we'll just pull back our dubbin a little bit away from the eye. You don't want to crowd your eye too much. And then we will half hitch, do a couple of those, 1, 2, 3, and make sure it's on. Now, if you pull a little hard, your line will snap. No problem. You can reattach your line. And throughout the fly, every so often, you'll see that I like to do a couple of cinch knots or half hitches, because what happens is if you should snap your thread, you won't lose all your work. Now, I like to leave my thread hanging in a knot while I'm doing this step. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our dubbin brush and we're going to be pretty rough with it. We don't have to be friendly with it. We can rough it up a bit. And we're going to rough it up all the way around. Top, bottom, the whole works. And once you get it fairly roughed up, we're going to comb it backwards. And we're going to make sure all those fibers get combed backwards. Just like that. All right. So now we'll put our dubbin brush down. So now that we've done that, we can just cut our thread. And we will take that out of the hook, or take the hook out of the vise. We'll grab one of those other pieces we made. We will slide it up through the end eye and fold it over, and that's what's going to give it the first articulation. So I'm going to put this in the vise. Now, depending on the pressure you need, some vices, the springs are really strong and they will flatten out your metal wire, and that can affect your fly a bit. So this wire seems to be all right for this vise, and for demonstration purposes, because I don't want to switch from one vise to another, I'm just going to do it all on one vise. And since I won't be selling this fly, then if it's a little flat, I'll just use it for myself. But if I was going to sell it using a thinner floral wire as the base, I probably would have switched it to my other vise, which I can adjust the tension by hand, and then I don't have to worry about flattening out the wire. The other thing is using the floral wire is really, really strong. And as you see, I attached the line, and now I'm going to do the same, dubbing this all the way to the top. And I'm going to keep working that thickness all the way through, the same thickness. And then when I comb it, it's going to cover up those little loops, so you won't even see them. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to be fairly liberal with the dubbing. And with the floral wire, it bends a little bit. The connections are very strong, but and when you fish it, it will stay straight. It'll stay lined up, but it's a little bit lighter wire, and you got to be careful when you tie it not to apply too much pressure, because if you apply too much pressure, you can bend the shank. The good thing is it will just bend right back. And once you get the fly complete, it holds its shape fairly well. I have never had a fish bend it to the point where it's like not straight or anything like that. And I've hooked into some really nice bass and trout and stuff, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. But definitely, it will tend to bend a little bit as you're working it. All right, so this is the point where we're going to tie it down with 2 or 3 cinch knots like this, or half hitches. Okay, as you can see, it slides a little bit in the vise. You can just straighten it back up. And again, before you cut off your thread, you want to take your dubbing brush and you want to go all the way around. And you don't have to push really hard on it. A, because you don't want to bend your shank, and B, because your dubbing brush will tease out all those fibers. You just have to rub it very fast back and forth, and it'll just tease out those little fibers. And then once you get them all teased all the way around, then you can start to comb it back like you did the other, like so. Up, down, on the bottom. Okay. And once you're happy with the shape, you can come in with your scissors and trim it. Okay, so now you got 2 segments done. Now here's a cool trick I learned. You'll see me talk about it in a lot of my videos, especially these streamer videos. You take a neodymium magnet and you can attach it onto your vise, and it will hold your tail in place so that it's not flopping off over your vise. It was a really good idea, and I can't remember who did that where I seen it first, but the guy was a genius. So now we're going to spread our little spine piece open. We're going to put it in through our other eye, pinch it closed, and then we will again gently put the spine, and we'll put our magnet there. We'll gently put our spine into our vise, like so, and we'll just use that little magnet to hold everything in place. like so. Beautiful. Then we'll reattach our thread. All the way to the back. And we'll just snip off the little tag end. And we'll work our way up to the front. And then back to the back again. Beautiful. Okay. I'm going to take some more of that green dubbin. I'm going to be quite liberal with it. And we're going to dub it forward. And then we'll take our thread and wrap it back. And then we'll dub it up again. So these flies take probably somewhere around 100 minutes to make. So they take a bit of time. They're not something you necessarily whip up in an evening a bunch. So my recommendation is when you have time on your hands where you're not doing anything, you tie one or two, you got an hour here or there, you tie one or two here or there, and you start collecting them. And when you're ready to fish, you'll have them available. They're not the kind of thing, hey, I'm going out with the buddies tomorrow on a Friday evening, and you whip them up. They're not that kind of fly. I usually tie, 2 or 3 a week for myself. I put them in a box, and when I'm ready to fish, I have them available. And if you find a couple of color patterns that really work, so I like to have a black or brown or dark colored one. I like to have a light colored one, white, and then some sort of naturally colored ones, and then some sort of really metallic-y based ones where I use the metallic tinsels and things. And I find that selection really works depending on what color day we're having. If we're having a bright day, I'll use the brights. If we're having a dark day, I'll use the darks. And that philosophy generally really does work well. By the way, as you go along, depending on what kind of dubbing brush you have, it's always good to clean out your dubbing brush a little bit, and that will just vitalize it so that it can go ahead and brush it again. And once you got that, you can trim it up. And that's our tail. So it's a very simple fly. It's this pattern is very natural colors, and I have caught a lot of fish on it. And yeah, it's really easy. It's one material, one dubbin. So now, basically, what we're going to do, I'm going to put the last piece on, the last part of the spine. This is the part that's going to attach onto the hook. And The hook that we're going to use, I'm going to use the same size hook that I did for the tail. This is what I would consider in the micro changer part of things. It's very thin. It's kind of on the smaller side, so it's not thick. Some of the other changers that I have are a bit thicker. Um, so we'll just put that off to the side. We're going to take our flat pliers, and again, we're going to flatten that straight. Again, I'm a huge fan of having my eyes straight out unless there's a specific reason to bend them or have them those hooks bent, which in most cases of the flies I like to tie is not that case. But I have seen some flies that guys tie that call for that, and if it works, it works. So now, when you're attaching on your tail piece, you want to have it sitting so that the hook is straight lined with the other hook, and all the spine should line up in that direction. And then you can pinch it with your other finger and tie it in. And as you go up and down this spine, be very careful again, like on the tail spine, be careful you don't nick this part of the spine with your thread because it will cut your thread, especially if you're applying a lot of pressure at that point. And you do want to apply a lot of pressure because this is going to hold this onto the fly. I am again going to take my crazy glue, pull my bobbin out of the way, and I'm going to apply some crazy glue. And that is going to, of course, lock everything in, which is exactly what we want to do. Okay, so at this point, what I want to do is put a little lip on this fly. And to do that, you are going to need a piece of thin plastic. You can get these off of things like sandwich cases. A lot of baked goods have this kind of plastic cover on them. Devices, if you buy like headphones or things from the dollar store, any sort of thin plastic that's flat, and you want it to be fairly flexible. It can come in different thicknesses. This is actually a heavier one, which I really like. I got it off a cake lid from Costco's. So this was a great plastic. So yeah, that's what you want. And regardless of the thickness, I'm going to show you to double it over. And if you double it over, then it's going to make it really secure. So take your scissors and you're going to cut your lip about, I'm going to say 8 millimeters wide. So you should have a piece like this. And what you're going to want to do is fold that in half like that. Then you're going to take your flat pliers like this. And again, you want about 8 millimeters up from the bottom. You want to bend it again. Maybe 5. You'll have to experiment about what's comfortable for you. It's between 5 and 8. So it depends on how large you've made this fly, how the lip will work for you. Now what you want to do is you want to cut the corners off on a I want to say 60-degree angle, like that. Let's see if I can get it up to the camera. So far you're looking like that. And here's the part where you have to be very, very, very careful. When you get up to the bend, you need to make 2 slits. So you're going to slit from one side to the center, but you don't want to go to the center. You want to only go like 2 millimeters in. And on the other side, you want to go the same 2 millimeters in. And then you want to leave about 2 millimeters in the middle. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your fingers and you're going to bend that in half, like so. Okay, so you're making a little trough. And then you're going to take your scissors and you're going to cut that trough down so that it's very thin. And on one side, you're going to see always is going to have a bit of a point. You're going to trim that flush and go along the back of it and trim it flush so that you have this nice little groove. And I like to trim the corners. That's same 60 degrees, top and bottom. So now the bottom is 60, the top is 60. Then we're going to take our flat pliers one more time, put it in center with our plastic, and with our 2 fingers, we're going to bend it up and make 2 little wings. And then we'll just gently unfold it. You don't want that to be such a steep bend. You want the water to still, you want it to push the water, but you want it to still flow around it. Okay, so as you can see, that's going to be our lip. Now we could put it on there. It'll hold on there. But something that I found that really works to keep it secure is if you take a straight pin, and you can get them like 300 or 400 at the dollar store for $1. Take a straight pin and you're going to push it through the 2 plastics. Now, it is going to be thick to do it. I usually put it down on a table. I don't have a table available at this present second, so I'm going to take a piece of cork and I will try to do it on here. Like I said, it's easier to prepare on the table, but you basically, what you want to do is you want to take it and push that pin through the center of your 2 lips. And then you can take off your thing. Now that it's through, I don't need that word anymore. I can pull it out of the cork. Okay, and as you can see, I put it right through the center of that. And you're going to push it in, but you're going to leave maybe 2 millimeters sticking out. You're going to hold this up to your hook, and you're going to see how much you need to trim off, because you want to trim it even with the end of the plastic. Okay. And if you find that the plastic is too long, because you don't want it to go all the way back to the end, because you don't want to close in your hook gap, right? Because you still got to tie some materials in there. So if you find that this plastic is a little bit long, you can take your scissors and just trim it down a little further. Okay, like that. And now you're going to take your thread, put it up to your hook eye, and you want to place this 2 millimeters back from the eye, so that where the bend is 2 millimeters back. You don't want to crowd that eye, because when you tie it in, you don't want to cover that eye up. And you can, at this point, if you only do a couple of loose wraps, you can still adjust it. And you want to take your pin and push it up and start tying that flush. And if it slips, don't worry, it hasn't come off. Just start again and just hold on to it and start applying your wraps. And you might need 20, 30 wraps. Okay. And just keep tying it in. And it might slip here and there. It is a little fidgety. But don't worry, because you can if you see any of your threads slip, you can just tie them down. That's okay. All right. Once you get it somewhat secured, work your way back up to the top. And then you're going to take your thread and you're going to go on top of the lip, under the eye, take that tip of the pin, and you're going to go under that and up over your lip and back onto your hook. And then you're going to do a couple of twists of line, and then you're going to go under from the other side, back up over, and you're going to do the same thing. And you're going to do that a couple of times, and that's going to help secure it and balance it onto your thread. And then just do a few more wraps behind. Okay. And just do a few more wraps. All right. And I know there's going to be some loose wraps, and you're going to be like, well, that looks not great. It looks not great at the moment, but it will look great. Take your glue, your crazy glue, and you're going to add a little bit on there. That's going to help to hold that in place. Now take your flat pliers and hold onto that lip and push that pin back until it's flush with the plastic. All right. And now you can take your thread and just start covering it. Cover everything. Cover the hook. Cover the line. Cover all the thread, all the plastics. And if it starts shifting, because you want it to be straight with the eye, you want that lip to be dead on straight, just keep working it. Just keep adjusting it. And as the crazy glue dries, it is going to hold that solid in place. Work your way to the back, cover up some more in the back. And when you work to the end where the pin is, just be cautious not to nick that with your thread. And as you can see, it's already starting to harden up. So it's becoming in place now. And you can take your crazy glue and just add a little more crazy glue. And wipe the crazy glue off. And it is gonna get in there solid. And this lip is going to make this thing swim like a little propeller. It is going to move in the water. Okay. So now bring your thread to the back. I usually like to add a little bit more sparkle into my fly at this point. And to keep with the red theme, I will take a little bit more red crystal flash. I will fold that piece in half. I will cut it in the center, and then I will fold it in half again. So make sure you line the tips up nice and even. Give it a trim. And I will apply my crystal flash. I want it to go a little, I want it to cover almost that whole segment of the where it tied in so that it will be really flashy at that point. I'll tie that in. I'll fold over the red, tie it in again, give it a bit of a trim. And just like on the tail, I'm going to take the remainder. I'm going to tie it in. And if you have any little extras at that point, fold them over and tie them over. And that is just going to make a really flashy sort of segment of your fly. Okay. Next, I'm going to take some more of that green dubbin and I'm going to twist it on my line. And I want to, at the end, you want to be liberal with it, but you also don't want to cover up that hook eye. So you want to leave a gap between where your dubbin is and the hook eye. So keep that in mind because when the fish bites this, depending on the size of fish, if you get a little fish, it's going to get caught on the tail, no problem. But if you catch a big bass, it's going to inhale this whole thing. As it goes to the back, generally that space in between here and here is enough to catch them. I catch a lot of fish on this. But if it misses on that hook, it will usually get hooked on the back. Sometimes you miss some fish, but generally this double hook system really catches a lot of fish. But the more of a gap between your dubbin and the hook at the head, and even at the back, will allow that fish to get hooked. So just keep that in mind. At this point, we just keep dubbing it, building up that head taper again, which will happen sort of naturally as you work your way up, due to the shape of the lip. And the next thing, when we get to this point, we want to start combing this out. So you went to roughly the halfway point of the front hook, and dub that up. You just want to tease out that dubbin. And when it's on the hook, you can be quite rough with it. That's holding pretty steady in your vise, or it should be anyways, depending on the vise you're using. And as you can see, all the little attachment points are all covered up because the dubbin blends it all together. Just like that. Okay. Now I want to take a little bit of red for this fly, and I want to dub it in this section here. And I'm going to be fairly liberal with it. I'm going to dub it in like this. I'm going to take some more, dub it in like this. And that's looking pretty good. Okay. Then you want to take your dubbing brush. Same thing. Rough it up. Pretend it owes you some lunch money. rough it up from the bottom, and then start combing it back, and you'll see that it's going to blend in nicely with the other green. All right, and I want to do another green for the head. You could do black, you could do all kinds of different colors, but I'm going to use a dark forest green to dub the top front. So we're going to dub from the red to the lip, and that'll pretty much finish it off. It's a very Christmassy sort of green, and it just gives definition to your fly. Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to brush this out. It's going to blend in with your red. Brush it underneath. And it's all going to be blended in, but it's enough that it gives it some definition. It makes that head of your fly pop out. And the last thing we're going to do, where did I put it? Ha! I had it prepared. We're going to put some eyes on there. And the eyes that I'm going to show you are these round balls. And what I'm going to teach you is you take a broom bristle, a heavy broom bristle, and there's all kinds of different broom bristles. You're going to want a fairly substantially thick broom bristle. They're Oscar brooms. I get them at Walmart. I use them to make mouse legs and anything where I need to make bead eyes like this. So what you want to do is you want to take your broom bristle and you want to put your bead eye on there, both beads for both sides. Try not to drop it while you're tying it. Probably best to prepare these before you get started. And what you want to do is you want to take your bead eyes and you want to push the bead almost to the end. You want about a 1 millimeter piece of broom bristles showing. And you want to take your lighter and you want to light that on fire. And then you want to quickly push it down on something metallic. I usually use my vise because, as you can see, it makes a nice dark pupil with a nice reflective green eye. Now the head of this fly is very wide, but you want to measure your two eyes. You want to place them up to your head, and with your scissors, you want to again leave about 1 millimeter and trim it. And then you want to push that bead to the millimeter point, heat it up, push it down. Oh, voila. You got like a beaded barbell or dumbbell eyes with beads. And then we're going to tie them on to the top of the head using a figure 8 pattern. So forward, backwards. Then you can go underneath, grab it from under, go underneath again. Like that. Do a couple more crazy 8s. And you want to secure that in, and we'll take a little bit of crazy glue. Pop a drop of that on. And that is going to secure our eyes in place. And then we are going to take that, wherever I put it, a green dubbin. And then we're going to just add a bit more dubbin onto our fly to cover up the black from the broom bristle. And we're going to blend it all in. Just like that. All right. Take your dubbin brush. Be rough on the head. Brush it backwards. Go underneath. Pull out your fibers. Brush them backwards. And then we can take our thread, tie it off. Bada boom, bada bing. We cut off our thread. Bob's your uncle. There is your finished little streamer fly. I don't know if it looks like a dragonfly larva. Then I like to switch it backwards in my vise. And I will give it a nice even comb through, just fluffing everything up, making sure everything is smooth and that everything is wiggling. And that's it. That is your awesome little fly. Now you can do any colors you want. You can blend any kinds of, all that dubbin is blended wool. I take wool, put it in the blender, blend it up, any colors. Orange, green, natural colors, brown. If you take two different colors, say like a brown and a yellow, you can get like a tan color. If you blend all your scraps together, you get this exact green color. So that's it, guys. No. So that's just my folks. They're down on the east coast of Canada and PEI. So they're on vacation, so they're calling. So that is our streamer fly. I hope you guys enjoy that. And keep checking in, guys, and I'll try and do some more live tie-in. Okay. Talk to you later. Bye.
Yeah, we're good. Okay, good. Are you done, Jody?
Yeah.
Okay, he's done.